Hi everyone, Claire is here again, as many viewers want to hear the old voice of DFTW. If you prefer the old Clara voice to the new Emily one, please let us know in the comments, so we can decide which voice to use in future videos. Welcome back to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective. Please subscribe and turn on notifications so you will not miss our daily uploads. Today, we're diving into a tense situation in one of the most contested waters on Earth, the South China Sea. Over the weekend, two U.S. military aircraft, a Seahawk helicopter and a Super Hornet fighter jet, went down into the South China Sea during what the Navy called routine operations from the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz. Thankfully, all 5 crew members were rescued and are now safe. But what happened, and why does it matter so much? Let's unpack it. Here's the sequence of events. Around 2:45 in the afternoon, local time on Sunday, an MH-60 or Seahawk, a multipurpose Navy helicopter used for search and rescue, anti-submarine missions, and cargo delivery, crashed into the South China Sea. Search and rescue teams from the Nimitz acted quickly. Within minutes, all 3 crew members were pulled from the water and taken back to the carrier. Then, just 30 minutes later, another crash happened. An FA-18F Super Hornet, a 2-seat fighter jet, also went down during routine flight operations. Both pilots ejected safely and were recovered by the Navy. 2 separate crashes within an hour, that's rare. The Navy's Pacific Fleet said both incidents are under investigation, and while details are still coming in, President Donald Trump told reporters aboard Air Force One that bad fuel might be to blame. No foul play. They think it might be bad fuel, Trump said. Nothing to hide. We'll find out. Now that's a big claim, bad fuel taking out both a helicopter and a fighter jet within 30 minutes. Possible, but investigators will need to confirm that. Now, let us have a look at the deep waters of the South China Sea that devoured 2 U.S. aircraft. It isn't just any ocean. It's one of the most strategic and tense waterways on the planet. Around 1/3 of global trade passes through here, and beneath the waves are valuable oil, gas, and fishing resources. In a recently published map, China drew a 10-dash line to claim sovereignty over the islands. Other countries, such as Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, Brunei, and even Indonesia, also have overlapping claims. The U.S. doesn't claim territory there, but it regularly sends ships and aircraft to assert what it calls freedom of navigation, basically the right of any nation to sail or fly through international waters and airspace without interference. China sees those patrols as provocations. The U.S. sees them as essential to maintaining its so-called rules-based international law. So when American military aircraft go down in that region, it's not just a safety issue, it's geopolitical. Beijing does not admit that it is pleased to see the 2 aircraft diving into the water. Still, Chinese netizens do not hide their delight, regarding it as the U.S. military's protest against Donald Trump's tour to Asia. U.S. soldiers will not get paid after November 15 due to the closing of the U.S. federal government, so it is reasonable that the service people were not motivated to safeguard the alleged freedom of navigation in remote waters thousands of miles away from their homeland with empty pockets. Now, here's where it gets interesting. After news of the crashes broke, China's foreign ministry offered to help, but with a bit of a warning attached. Spokesperson Wu Jiaquan said Beijing had noted the reports, and that if the U.S. requested assistance, China would provide it on humanitarian grounds. But then came the jab. The U.S. is flexing its muscles and frequently sending military aircraft into the South China Sea, was said. This is the root cause undermining regional peace and stability. So, we'll help if you ask, but this is your fault. Right, it's diplomacy with a side of criticism. That's classic for this region. Let's put this in context. The South China Sea has seen plenty of close calls before. 4 years ago, in October 2021, a U.S. nuclear submarine hit an unknown object there and was damaged, towed away like a dead fish for repair. In 2022, the U.S. Navy lost an F-35 stealth fighter that crashed during a landing mishap, also in the South China Sea. It took a complex salvage operation to recover it before other countries could get to the wreckage. And just recently, Australia accused a Chinese fighter jet of performing an unsafe maneuver during a patrol over the sea, one that could have easily gone wrong. Indeed, the South China Sea is a pressure cooker. U.S. ships regularly sail near disputed islands, like the Spratlys and the Paracels, to challenge China's territorial claims. China usually responds with military shadowing or warnings to leave Chinese waters. Few Chinese forget an incident that happened nearly a quarter of a century ago in that region, which still stirs strong emotions across China. It's the story of Wang Wei, a Chinese Navy pilot whose name has become a symbol of patriotism, sacrifice, and national pride. He is the pilot who died in 2001 during a mid-air collision with a U.S. reconnaissance plane over the South China Sea. At Wang Wei's tomb in Hangzhou, people bring flower bouquets, miniature models of fighter jets, and even artwork depicting China's most advanced aircraft, such as the J-20 and J-35 stealth fighters, to remember the hero. And this year, something new caught attention: 2 pieces of artwork depicting what are believed to be China's 6th-generation fighter jets, one of them flying beside Wang Wei's plane, almost as if protecting him in heaven. Wang Wei has become a patriotic icon, not through propaganda alone, but through genuine emotion. He embodied traits that deeply resonate in Chinese culture, like courage and sacrifice, dying in defense of the motherland, and perseverance, representing China's determination never again to be technologically or militarily outmatched. The Chinese military has made tremendous progress since Wang Wei's death, and in the South China Sea, China has gained the upper hand over extraterritorial forces. As we analyzed in a video published 3 years ago comparing the Chinese and American navies, the Chinese ships and planes are newer and more combat-ready than those of the U.S. Although the U.S. is still flexing its muscles in the region, the Chinese military does not care much about it like it did before. It is worth noting that the USS Nimitz has been in service for half a century, and its operation in the South China Sea this time is its last trip before retirement. Other Nimitz-class carriers are also getting old. For instance, USS Eisenhower is 48, USS Carl Vinson is 43, and USS Theodore Roosevelt is 39. They are literally as old as the U.S. President himself. Many U.S. carriers are retiring soon, and America's ship industry does not have enough capacity to build new ones to fill the gap. When China possesses 5 or 6 carriers in the next 10 years, it will not only gain the upper hand in the Western Pacific, but also be able to compete with the U.S. on the global stage. As said earlier, the South China Sea is thousands of miles from the United States, and maintaining a military presence there is very costly for the U.S. The so-called freedom of navigation is becoming a joke nowadays, and before long, countries in the region will no longer take it seriously as they did before. This time, 2 aircraft crashed into the deep waters just as President Trump landed in Malaysia, kicking off his Asia tour, where he's expected to meet China's leader, Xi Jinping, later this week, their first face-to-face since Trump's return to office earlier this year. Apart from trade and the economy issues, the South China Sea and Taiwan will definitely be discussed behind closed doors. So imagine this. 2 U.S. military aircraft crashed in waters that China claims, right before a meeting between the U.S. and Chinese leaders. That's not a great look for Washington, especially as tensions in the region are already sky-high. Trump just bragged about the U.S. military's superiority days ago, saying Beijing will not take any action. The incident was like a slap in the face, prompting people to question the U.S. Army's competence. When the so-called bad fuel led to the crashes of 2 U.S. aircraft, more warplanes are likely to fall into the water like ducks due to various issues. Ironically, the 50-year-old USS Nimitz, leading Carrier Strike Group 11 and operating in the Indo-Pacific region, is currently ensuring freedom of navigation. Despite the crashes, operations have continued uninterrupted. The U.S. Navy hasn't released much about the missions the aircraft were on or whether weather, mechanical failure, or human error played a role. Investigations are ongoing. And until those results come in, speculation will keep swirling, from bad fuel to engine malfunction or even a maintenance issue tied to the carrier's age. What's clear, though, is that incidents like this underscore how risky the U.S. presence in the South China Sea can be, and how fragile regional stability really is. Even when no one gets hurt and no shots are fired, every encounter, every accident, every close call adds tension to an already volatile mix. Exactly. China wants the US out of the game of chicken. The US insists it's defending international law, but treading on another superpower's doorstep is getting more and more dangerous nowadays. Just look at the long-range missiles on the Chinese military parade on September 3, 2025, and one can easily figure out how desperate and helpless the US carriers will be when a real war breaks out in the South China Sea. Both sides are determined, one defending the so-called international law, the other defending its sovereignty, elaborately maintaining the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. So while these crashes may have been accidents, they happened in the wrong place at the wrong time, which makes them politically explosive. As Trump and Xi prepare to meet, everyone's watching to see whether this incident adds tension or opens the door to cooperation, maybe even a rare moment of goodwill between two rivals.